This is Two on One, the internet's only podcast about theology and pop culture or any other topic. We literally are it, your only choice for podcasts. I am one of your co-hosts, the Reverend Arthur Stewart.
Oh, and I'm your other co-host, the Reverend Stephanie Kendall. How are you, Arthur?
I'm doing well. I'm doing very well. It's October, and once again, it's a red October, at least for me, because the Cardinals are in the playoffs.
Okay, they're in the playoffs, but my dear friend, it is Orange October because the Giants won. We won the NL West, my love.
So I just got to note that the Cardinals are hopefully going to take out the Dodgers, which I know you're looking forward to, because then the Giants can take out the Cardinals and you'll be like, oh, it was worth it. But
that's a really good Smith impression. But no, I am rooting for your Cardinals. I will say.
You're rooting for the Cardinals?
I am, because I love my Giants. I love my Giants with my whole heart. And I do not appreciate the Dodgers. So I am in these wildcard games. I'm team Cards in this, because I think I also have enough card friends that I think it's a really fun when we play each other. Dodgers or Giants Cardinal rivals are good.
As long as it's one of us, like at least our pitchers bat, right? Throwing shade the entire half of the Major League Baseball.
I have an entire sermon about that, about how God gives us many gifts and we aren't supposed to just pull people out when they don't have the full. But that's okay. All of our no, here we go. All of our American League friends, and Deuces, we love you. We're just competitive, and that's okay, because today is a sports episode. We are competitive because we are talking Ted Lasso. And I don't know about you, but I love like things where it's like the craftsmanship. I'm on Fanatics a lot. I just bought a Sue Bird jersey because really appreciative of Sue Bird's entire career. And I was thinking it would be really rad if our lead sponsor and favorite liturgical textilist, Jeff Wunrow, made me a giant stole, or maybe even an AFC Richmond stole.
I've been thinking about what an AFC Richmond stole would say, because it would have to say "believe" on it, right?
Yeah.
And what if there were concentric circles that kind of invoked like a dartboard, right?
Oh, that's fun.
And splotches of red, not like blood red, but spirit red, to indicate barbecue sauce. So I think this is a possibility. And now, of course, I want to harass Jeff and see if it will happen. Because if you go to jeffwunrow.com, JEFFWUNROW.com, you can see a wide variety of stoles in beautiful designs for every season of the church year, and customization options, including height and custom. I really do think I could send him a cocktail napkin with my ideas and he would make something beautiful.
That's probably true. Jeff's incredibly talented about all of those things. I'm a little bit like, yeah, we should definitely reach out and get these AFC Richmond or Ted Lasso stoles. Yeah, and his customization, you can put your quotes in, you can put anything. My stoles we've talked about on the inside has a little has my ordination text, because I bought it for the anniversary of my ordination. But he can put anything in there you want. It doesn't have to be a text. It can be a thank you, or anything you want, your favorite quote. And Arthur, I hate to drop this on you, but I don't know, Christmas is 82 days away, 80 days away.
Shut up.
Exactly. Shut up. And we're not back in person yet. We're still online because we're waiting for vaccines for the children. But I know a lot of our deuces and friends out there are back in person. And I think it'd be really cool if they showed up for Christmas this year, or Advent, or even to start the new year with some new liturgical textiles from Jeff Wunrow.
Right, and we just don't mean stoles. We mean frontals, paraments, banners, liturgical face masks. If you need a mitre, if you're of the liturgical tradition, or you're just a renegade and you need a mitre, Jeff Wunrow has got you covered. Please check out Jeff Wunrow, JEFFWUNROW.com after the show today. And be sure, if you're making a stole order, use our promo code 2on1, all one word, all letters, at checkout towards the end. You'll find it for 15.
Yeah, don't do your Apple Pay immediately, because then it's harder to put it in. You got to go to the end, put 2on1, all one word.
Yep. And we'll make it happen. 15% off your entire stole purchase from our favorite liturgical textilist, who's spending 16 years making ordinary time extraordinary. And we're still in ordinary time, and we're thankful for you, Jeff. Let's talk Ted Lasso. I'm going to bring in Werner.
Okay. Dun, 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 dun. He's here. He's there.
Werner Ramirez. Welcome back to 2-on-1.
It's good to see you all again.
Yeah, good to see you as well. I love your AFC Richmond jersey.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
It's great. I think if those of you that remember our last episode with Werner, I was a little bummed that I didn't have my shirt, and I've been waiting for it for the entire episode, and it finally came. It is a Believe shirt. I am in it today with, gusto. I got dressed this morning. I was like, I know what I'm wearing, because I was very excited for today's episode.
Well played. Well played.
So we should probably jump right into this. So this episode is premiering before the season finale, the season 2 finale of Ted Lasso. So we are a spoiler show, and we're very overtly a spoiler show. We are going to warn people right now. One, if you haven't seen season 2 of Ted Lasso or season 1 of Ted Lasso, you probably want to do that because we're talking about big points. And 2, we're not going to talk about the finale. We're only going to speculate because it hasn't happened yet.
It's true. Season 1 has 10 episodes. You've all heard that story where I watched episodes of season 1, episode 1 through 9, like 4 times, thinking 9 was the finale, and I was so stoked about it. And like one day at like 2:00 in the morning while I was going to bed, because I played Ted Lasso to, kind of fall asleep to, comforting humans. And then it was just like, do you want to watch episode 10? And I was like, what magic is this? What happened? And turned out there had been a 10 all along, and I just hadn't watched it. And there are 12 episodes of season 2. So just make sure you've watched 1 through 11.
My husband and I thought it was 10 episodes this season, and I texted him and said, there's 12 episodes, and he wrote back, your pants are on fire, but they weren't.
Well, and so there's I was gonna say, let's talk about that. So there's 10 episodes. They wrote the 10 episode arc for season 2 before, they were told that there were 12 episodes. So they did these 2 insert episodes. They are the Christmas episode and the beard episode. What did you think of those? And what do we think of interjecting those types of services? If we look at them as services throughout the year, what do they do to the arc of the show? And what does the church have to learn from those interjecting 2 episodes?
From bottle episodes, from throwaways?
I don't know if they're throwaways. I actually really liked them. I thought that, I don't know, Werner, I want to hear from you.
Yeah, so that's some new information that I didn't know. I didn't know that it was originally 10 episodes. So that makes a lot more sense. I remember after we finished watching the beard episode, I looked at my wife and I said, what was that? And I don't think they're a throwaway episode. It really was something odd to watch, and I didn't know how to pull from the story, except for that, like, you get to know people that you don't really think of. Like the 3 guys at the bar, you don't know their story, you don't know their hopes and their dreams, and some of them have some deep thoughts. I can't remember if it was in that episode or no, it was in the last episode when they're asking the Dr. Sharon really life big questions, and they ask Beard too, like let's talk, what do you think about life? And I don't know, you just think of them as the drunks at the bar that don't think about life very often, but that is very untrue. They have stories as well. So they're odd episodes, but I don't necessarily think they're throwaways as odd as that episode was.
I didn't like the beard episode. I will admit that I watched it and it was episode number 9, and I was like, there's 10 episodes and they're blowing an episode on this. I have a weird relationship to Beard because he is a 5 who lives in 7, Enneagram wise, and that was him just being super unhealthy that entire night. I do love his world-class BSing skills about being an Oxford professor, and that's the height of successful 7dom. I don't know. I'm glad they're experimenting with it. I'm glad they kind of showed that Beard's a little crazy. And there's room for it. The Christmas episode I loved. because it was campy, and British Christmas specials are just campy and beautiful. Having watched so many Doctor Who Christmas specials, it hurts. Like, they Love Actually to guy. They Love Actually to bully back into Community.
To a kid.
Yeah, like, and it also made me dislike Love Actually less. So I don't know.
That's interesting. For all of you that want to know Arthur's opinions on Love Actually, go back to Christmas in July.
It's very, very obvious from what I just said, but please.
Yeah. Please go back, like, subscribe, and go back to that episode. But I'm with both of you. So I think I tweeted after that, my tradition, I suppose, of watching season 2 has been to watch it at midnight when it comes out on Thursday night, and then kind of process and watch it again on Friday. But like, I can't wait. Like, I have no patience for that. At midnight, I'm like, let's go. And I had no one up to process that Beard episode with. And I was like, so I think I tweeted something along the lines of like, I like it. It was like, it was fun, but also no more, please. I can handle it for the one. And I thought, like, I really like getting to know Beard a little bit. I really like getting to know the guys at the bar. And May, the bar owner, a little bit more, and like what's happening in there. But and I think that I think what I learned from it, if I'm thinking about this on the fly, actually, is like, what I learned is that I don't like it, but at least we tried it. So for next season, they know that they've got a 12-story arc, so they're going to write to a 12-story arc, and that's going to kind of carry that through line. But they wouldn't know whether or not it lands had they not tried these things. And I think sometimes the church is a little too afraid to try something so avant-garde and something so new. Like, those beard pants are kind of amazing, and also kind of like, what is he wearing? And so, like, what does it look like when the church is like, oh, let's do something, let's go all in too, right? Like, the cinematography is beautiful, like the lighting is incredible, costumes awesome, like it highlights kind of the larger aspect of what it means to like do a show, right? So like, what would it look like if we let the deacons just fully plan a worship and say, like, here you go, one of you's going to preach, one of you's going to do the thing. I don't know, like, and maybe it'll work and maybe it won't, but you don't know until you try. So for me, that's what I took from those episodes.
That's good. I think churches need to be riskier in trying new things, and failure is not a bad thing. And it wasn't a complete, like I said, it wasn't a throwaway, but there's stuff to learn from it. So if the church is willing to try things and say, you know what, maybe we don't do this one again, but we learned this and that, like that's still not a failure.
Well, and I think perhaps I was unfair because I said I wish they'd go back to the regular format. Like, they snuck the theme in a completely different version halfway through the episode, which it took me a while to notice what they were doing and such. I just realized I was being the person in the back going, well, this isn't the music I grew up with.
I was just about to say, if you try something entirely new, especially if you're more like established historical church, like Werner's church is a very established historical church, you're going to, you just got to prepare yourself for like 2 years of remember that time you did this, like, or maybe 10 years, right? You're going to have those people that always bring it up, but it also kind of puts it in your mind, like, yeah, and we can continue to try new things. The church didn't go away. We're still here.
Well, and the Beard episode is Youth Sunday. Like, Youth Sunday exists not only to put youth into leadership, but Youth Sunday exists because it's the annual time where people have to be uncomfortable and they just have to deal with it. Because they're not going to tell a 12-year-old that his communion meditation wasn't right. They're not going to tell a 9-year-old that's not how you collect an offering. They're not going to tell a 16-year-old your sermon sucked. Or if they do, they should just go to another church because Jesus Christ's kids. But, it's that.
Well, the interesting thing about that is that, like, I don't like Youth Sundays.
Oh, yeah.
Mainly not because of the uncomfortableness, is that it dedicates youth on one particular Sunday and say that they shouldn't be part of the rest of the services. Where I feel like they should be fully integrated on every Sunday, on every Resurrection Sunday. Now, do I want a Beard episode in every every Ted Lasso show? Probably not. But I one question I have for you all,
Yeah.
and I don't know if I have an answer for this. Did you all see any theological significance that there was so much church in that Beard episode, that like that the club that she was at was like the sign was a cross, and then when he walked in there, it was a church that had a secret underground club. And I remember when he walked in, I was like, okay, this is gonna get really good. And his kind of, and I was so disappointed in the confession. Like the confession was like I thought, I don't know, I just thought it was gonna be a little bit deeper than like, I really love Jane.
I thought it was beautiful because I think it speaks to Beard's inherent codependence. It's I mean, I don't think Beard is healthy. I enjoy him. I love when he disappeared on Nate, like he was Batman on the roof with Commissioner Gordon. Like that makes my heart happy. But like, it took Higgins saying to him, Jane is bad for you and you should not be with her. And he doesn't listen and he keeps doing it. And it's going to be destruction. So it was kind of an interesting thing of like, even religion is not a balm. Religion is just a means to the next end, because he's seeking some sort of fullness, but he's not going below the surface. I do love the idea of the underground club in a church. I kind of want to do mine.
Well, and that's kind of what I was watching. I was like, oh, I was with you, Werner. I was like, oh, I'm like, what theological depth is like, who, like, what if you, like, in my head, I was like, oh, what if Beard goes in and like knows the entire pastoral staff and like is a regular, like we find out Beard's like a regular churchgoer or something, like I was like waiting for it. And then it was like just the club, but also those people felt comfortable in that church, in that club, in that space. And so as someone, our church is under construction and we're trying to think of lots of new ministries to do with it. And I don't know that like an underground club scene is what we're going to do, but I like the idea that people that don't necessarily find themselves comfortable in the sanctuary on Sunday can find themselves comfortable in the sanctuary on a Thursday night or whatever it is. And I just think that there's some, like, for me, I was like, ooh, that, and it's still a cross. It still calls you to, like, there are still things, they didn't erase what it was, right? Like you don't cover the stained glass, you don't put a shawl over the cross, like it's there, it is what it is, but it expands what it is and for who it is. And so I was like, I didn't hate it. I'm with you, Arthur, on the Beard's really unhealthy right now, and I like that episode where Higgins was like, Jane is unhealthy for you. Higgins is the only one speaking truth there, and all the other ones are just keeping it to themselves. And I was like, for my Diamond Dogs, I expect a little bit more. I expect some truth and honesty. But I think that, and I want to kind of move us into this next space, if I might. Season 2, I think, has really taken to problematizing something like, right, season 1 was a lot of like, let's show we can do some healthy relationship building, forgiveness, like open communication. And season 2 seems to trouble the waters a little bit in a way that I appreciate, because at the end of season 1, if it's just all healthy, always communication, it's not as realistic as like, you're going to continue to bump up against people. And how do you continue to maintain that posture of grace? And so I think that for me, that's where season 2 is heading, but I'm interested in y'all's opinion. How do you feel about season 2 versus season 1 as it relates to like healthy communication styles?
Well, I think from Ted Lasso's standpoint, like Coach Lasso, like he was like the ultimate hero in that in season 1, like in the darts scene, in the way that he gives grace at the confession, and he struggled, and he still carries some of that good open communication in season 2, but there is a little bit more of a struggle. He doesn't know how to communicate with Sharon at first, and he admits, like, sometimes I just talk and talk and talk, and I'm just a chatterbox where I should just be a listener box, I think is what he said. And so you get to see a little bit more of the he's not a perfect human being as we put him in season 1, and I think that's good. It's letting us into some of the faults of some of the characters while still liking them and relating to not only their hopes and dreams, but relating to their failures. And that stings in kind of an odd way. I know, I'm sure we're going to talk about Nate and like, I still really like him. And like, you're starting to see some things that are really unhealthy about him, and like Beard. And I think for me, it stings in some ways of like, oh, I see some similar tendencies and I don't like that. Similar, like when you read the Enneagram for the first time, you're like, oh, damn it. Like
that doesn't happen with sevens. Sevens are just like, cool. Like we're fine with it. Everybody else is like, oh God.
Threes are not.
Yeah.
Want to remind me of your Enneagram?
I'm a 2-wing 3.
That's what I thought. Okay.
And I wonder if Nate's a 2-wing 3.
See, and I think he's a 3-wing 2. Or he's a 9 in it. Or who goes to 3 in unhealth? Is it 9 or 6? 6s. Okay, then he's possibly a 6, like just a really unhealthy 6 this season, in which he's trying to lean into like wanting more, and that 3ness is taking over. Because also I could see his like counterphobicness in his 6ness. Anyways, there's a whole. That's pieces out there. What do you think Nate is? Because that's a question.
As we talk about Nate, before we get into that, I do want to point out something that I kind of realized in the general theme of the show, and then let's focus back in on Nate in this.
Sure.
This is a season about relationship, particularly fathers and sons, or fathers and children, or parents and children, whatever, I don't know. The 3 major people of color on the show, Sharon, Nate, and Sam, are all persons who are almost foils in order to make Rebecca and Ted and everybody, in Nate's case, look better. Sharon's boundaries are repeatedly violated, more and more so as she goes through the show, where Ted actually shows up to yell at her because she chose how she was going to say goodbye. Sam is a booty call, even though he's so well known. An African billionaire comes to recruit him, and Nate is the villain. At least as of episode 11, it's a little problematic to me, I think, and I don't know if it's an intentional thing or not, but I don't know. What do you think about this, and is this show whitewashing without meaning to?
I think partially, yeah. I mean, if when we talk about it like that, I think that they're also bringing in some of, like, I think Dr. Sharon is brought in a really needed way for that team. But I can see, I mean, my issue with Rebecca and Sam is a whole other thing, especially looking at UNWSL and everything that's happening. Shout out to Meg Linehan and The Athletic for dropping some truth this week, and some structural change that needs to happen in women's soccer. But like, for me, that's the Sam and Rebecca issue that I have the biggest issue. Like, they're both consenting adults, yes, but she owns the team. Like, there's a power imbalance there that is just not okay, even though part of me was like really into it and like, oh, like, yeah, like I could see how these opposites are attracting and that's fun, but I was like, no, this power dynamic is
an equal relationship.
Yeah, it's cute, but the power dynamics it's almost like a parishioner pastor relationship. Like that's completely inappropriate, and like and sometimes I think some other people see that as cute, like, oh, pastor so and so, and like they're like, oh, they would be cute together. I'm like, well, if that's true, then like one of them has to leave the church, and like,
I don't know if it's the case federally, but I remember in Texas it was very clear, if a pastor is in a relationship with a parishioner, that pastor is at fault for assault. Like that ethical boundary cannot be crossed because it is illegal.
So I mean, I had that when the Sam Rebecca story, I was like, oh, this part, and it just didn't feel completely right. But I don't know. I don't know if I'm seeing those dynamics that you're talking about are there. I have trouble calling Sam a booty call.
No,
because
forgive me. That's an inappropriate phrasing on my part. I do.
Yeah, because I mean, there's and that's not just the point of his. I mean, like, he kicks off the show with a huge social justice aspect to the show. I mean, like, I crossed off my Dubai on my
Who's
jersey
that?
right now.
Yes, I was gonna ask you.
Does Dubai Airlines exist, and do they
I don't-
think that they're the villains? I mean,
I
are they real? I'm gonna Google that while we talk. Excuse me.
I was a little bummed. Werner, to that point, I loved that opening thing. I thought it was such a good way to get Jamie Tart back into the fold of fans, especially, right? Like, because everyone, I think, is everyone like no one's really a Jamie fan, although we are. And when he's like, we all have to wear the same kit, it was so good on how to get him back on board. I was really bummed with how they kind of just swept that under the rug, though, where it was like Sam Zad calls and is like, you did it, yay! And then like there's no like I was like, come on, Trent Grimm, like push him on, you got him to say the Nigerian government is doing all this problematic stuff, and like then it just goes away. And I was like, that would never happen.
Yeah, there would be potentially like he did get they did ask to drop him. And they said no, but like it would be a lot more complicated. And so yes, you're right, they did sweep that under the rug, but that was such a, I don't know, that was like my first like tears of season 2 is like was that scene. I don't know.
I mean, but okay, so I think that this conversation is good, right? Because this is for those of you that aren't on pastoral staffs, these are the conversations we're having anyways, just not necessarily about Ted Lasso. We're having them about like the relationship dynamic between people, who brings what to the table, who doesn't, who have we heard from other people are problematic, who's not, things like that. And if we took everyone at their worst fault always, we would have no one in the church. If we did not offer the grace to work with people every time we heard something troublesome about them. Now, are we called to address it? Absolutely, right? And I'm not saying egregious acts of personal and physical safety violations and things like that, but just like, so-and-so was mean to me, right? So-and-so, or whatever it is. I don't like the music. You did this, X, Y, and Z. And what I like about season 2 is that it is, again, problematizing these relationships and saying, like, not everything is perfect. Not everything is, I forgive you. Sometimes it's going to be like, you hurt my feelings. Like to address it directly. And there's going to be some need for repair, right? That it's not an immediate fix. I think that we're on the long haul of Nate being really toxic and bad in that staffing situation, getting a little bit, I heard recently, and I don't know that this is true, but I heard recently it was written after Jason Sudeikis saw some people on SNL get a little bit of fame and then start to treat people really terribly because they got noticed for like this one thing. And so it's not just soccer players or coaches, or people in, religious leaders or actors. It's a little bit of everyone. And we're going to take, and I like that you still like Nate. Right now I'm having a real problem liking Nate, but I think that there's grace there. I'm waiting for how he tries to make amends. And that's like where I think I posture myself with problematic people always is like, I'm going to give you the opportunity to like make this right. So like, let's lean into that and not just cut you off.
So Nate's betrayal.
I don't know.
Within that, with Nate's betrayal, can we talk about Ted's look when Trent is texting him? Because there's not an ounce of anger on Ted's face. It's just betrayal and it's just pain. And Ted is the one who, when directly confronted about, like, I set up this paparazzi to try to take you down and ruin your life, and I hired you as, it's just, I forgive you, divorce is hard. Is there something to be said about the direct naming and operation of conflict instead of the inevitable rumor mill that exists through churches, right? Like it's, our new standard at Riverside is we don't talk about people, we talk to people. And everything's a triangle and now nothing is, because God, I hate triangles. Like generally not, never mind, geometry people, leave me alone. But what does it mean? The thing I liked about Ted Lasso in season 1 was there wasn't that tropey drama. Like they literally moved away from tropes. They'd be like, look, we're driving right towards it. Oops, right turn. The bitch boss is actually really likable and vulnerable. Now we've got Nate as a villain, almost wearing all black, like Roy Kent when he was almost the villain to begin with. I lost my question. I'm sorry about that.
No, I think let's nuance, and I would love to hear Warner's opinion on this. Is there a difference for us as Christians between like betrayal and pain, like direct kind of like pain? And I think, I think that there's a real I mean, as Christians, I think we have a very specific point in our theological identity and scriptural references for how we understand both of those things. So I'm wondering how Nate's betrayal and Rebecca's kind of more direct harm to him that he kind of understands is how you understand that as a person of faith.
Right. I think we kind of discussed this on the last podcast, is we're all curious what's happening with Nate. There's obviously some issues with his father that we've seen throughout the season. There's issues about wanting recognition. There's issues about feeling like his presence doesn't matter. And I'm curious if Ted is gonna approach this in that curious kind of lens like he did in season 1. And I think the betrayal is bigger here, mainly because like Ted helped launch his career. And I think Ted really likes him and Ted really loves him. So he feels the betrayal, but I'm curious to see if he's gonna attend to it in the same curious mind frame that he did with Rebecca.
Same, yeah, that's exactly what I thought. And I don't know if you all picked up in your like spidey feels when you were watching. I knew Nate was going to be really problematic this season the minute he started treating the new kit guy so awfully. And I think that had Ted been more direct in his own leadership and saying, we don't treat each other that way. I have a saying that I say to everyone is, and I don't care how old you are or if you were in my youth group or not, so we don't talk to each other like that in youth group. I've said that to my mother, like to my friends, like, and what I mean by that is like, when I was a youth leader, that's when you're pushing, you're testing your boundaries and you're trying to figure that out. And I was just very clear. We're not going to speak to each other. You're not going to speak to me that way. You're not going to speak to anyone that way. That's not how we treat each other here in youth group. And I think that Ted needed a little harder stance on that, right? We don't treat each other like that on this team. Like, this is not how we understand the reciprocity of respect, how I don't trust your even good, ideas if I can't trust you as a person. And when he doesn't stand up, and I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the new kit guy's name, but if you don't stand up for the least of these, if you don't stand up for those that are being abused and are being emotionally assaulted in this way, you aren't actually leading. You're actually letting that power, like Nate's actually leading this space right now because he has the power to manipulate all sorts of people. And I think we also saw that when in the really beautiful episode, which is my favorite episode as of this far, the Man City episode. And they have that beautiful confessional right ahead of time, right? Which is where Nate gets this betrayal idea. But if you notice, everyone says something really deep, right? Well, for the most part, there's some depth and like thought, like Hagen saying, we didn't get that trade because I messed up. Roy setting some expectations. I'm not going to read those reports and I'm never going to, like, just like heads up. And like Nate is just like, I have good ideas all the time. And sometimes I just hold on to them. And it was like, that's not like one of these things is not like the other here.
Nate is generationally traumatized, right? Because I'm assuming that the only way he knows how to treat people is how he has been treated, which makes me feel like it's a competitive household that he grew up in. He is treating the kit guy exactly as he was treated as the kit guy. He lacks the vulnerability in order to live into better relationship, and he is so centered on shame. By the way, I do agree with Werner. I'm going to say 2 wing 3 is my argument for his stance, only because it comes from this deep place of caring, except he hates himself. He literally spits at his own reflection. He has no room for his own feelings.
Right. And also when the new kid guy, right? I guess that's what we're going to call him on this episode. Like he makes him that Wonder Kid shirt as a joke, but also like as appreciation. And I don't think Nate thought it was, I think he thought it was kind of cute until he saw a tweet that said like, but he's still like, yes, he helped us win this game, but he's still like a nerdy guy. He's still nothing. And as soon as he saw that tweet, that's when it braided Will. And so again, from a posture of curiosity, like there is some deep pain and some trauma that Nate's dealing with, that doesn't excuse his behavior, that needs to, but like all the shit that people do that is harm, like there's a story behind it. And again, not an excuse for actions, but what's the deeper pain? Which
So then
hold on, I want to go on. But again, I want to go back. So then is the betrayal, like, is that a nuanced pain? I don't, like, you know, like when if we're thinking of them as kind of a little bit more separate, right? And like, you know, what does Jesus teach us to do in those situations, right? Like Jesus has meals with his betrayer, right? Like intentionally, but you don't go unscathed. Like there is, you know, like Judas doesn't get the last word in all of this. And so I'm wondering, does our faith teach us to understand the relationship between curiosity and betrayal well?
Ooh, that's the question this time.
Can you say that one more time?
Yeah, thinking of, you know, Nate and Judas, because that's kind of where we really want to parallel them. Does the church do well or need to do better, or, you know, anywhere in between, of naming the relationship between curiosity and betrayal?
Yeah, I think ideally, like the answer is yes. We would want to attend to all that. That's holistic ministry, to be able to, and that is the, what's the word I'm looking for? The controversy of the cross is that Jesus like is with the victim, but also forgives the oppressor. Like that's the scandal of the cross. That's the word I'm looking for. And so ideally, I think the church wants to be in both of those spaces. But it's tricky. It's hard because there's people's safety involved. There's people's reality involved, like emotionally, physically, financially at times. So it's, church is complicated, ministry is complicated. And I think finding that right balance in a situation like that is, I don't know if there's a perfect way to do it, but I'm sure it can be done gracefully and carefully. But it's going to look different in every single scenario. Yeah. So to answer your question, yeah, like we need to look at betrayal and curiosity with very specific lenses of grace.
I agree.
And I think amends matter. I think that's things back at zero, but amends have to matter. When we talked about Jamie Tart earlier, like when Jamie was a complete and utter ass, but he was never a betrayer. He went back to the team that he was on loan from. He played for the team as he should have, and he evolved as a person and got them relegated. But he did what he was supposed to do in that moment as a player for Man City. With Jamie still made amends because there was harm. I don't think he ever named it as such, but he did so. And it's from that place of humility and vulnerability that it works. And Nate is so invulnerable and so impossible to efface that it's probably going to cause more problems. That is to say, when there's harm done in communities, in faith communities, there has to be a process of naming it, of acknowledging it, of making amends. And I haven't seen a lot of communities that do really well with that, because, you know, the Matthew 18 thing, I forget, I think it was David Fitch writes about that, where he says Matthew 18 is how to create reconciliation, not how to discipline people. The first you talk one-on-one, and then it's confront it with a group of elders, and then bring it in front of the entire church. This is a way of saying, how are amends made? How can we resolve this, rather than you have failed because you are a woman wearing pants or whatever. So
well, yeah, and you know, I don't know how many sermons I don't know if I've ever heard the sermon of like, why did Judas do it? I'm curious what was, you know, I'm curious about, you know, Judas's childhood trauma and what led to this moment. And if we are called to give that grace to everyone, like, why on earth do we have this biblical villain that we can all kind of like lean into, right? And like that is often where Judas lands in the kind of discourse. And so like, I think we can do better, and we need to do better, right? To ask them to talk about why it is we hurt each other, because hurt people are hurting people, and that's just a cycle that is going to continue unless we are curious enough to say why. Right. And so I think that is really we've cycled out of Rebecca's why, like and I think we're picking up some of Nate's why now, like.
Well, again, like you said, like hurt people hurt other people, and one of the things that I think this season is doing brilliantly is like bringing in talking about mental health and therapy, and the church often thinks they can take care of it themselves, we think we can bring this posture of curiosity and bring grace and care, but we do it on our own, and we don't ask the Holy Spirit for help. We rely on our own teachings, we rely on our own confidence, and we don't ask the Holy Spirit for help, and we don't ask mental health professionals for help. And I think the season is brilliantly talking about talking to people that have been professionally trained to listen to problems with sage wisdom, that can really help people. I mean, like one of the parts that I don't know why I teared up a little bit, but like it's in the first episode with Danny Rojas, like going to therapy, and Ted asked him, "Wait, what did she tell you?" And he goes, "Well, she reminded me that football may be dead, but football is still alive, and sometimes football is just football." And I don't. I just thought it was such a brilliant, like it was just so simple, and like it restored his joy in the salvation of soccer, like with still naming the truth that, like, yes, in this football situation, like football was dead because you killed his dog, but sometimes football is just football, and yes, football can also be life. Like it's not black and white like that. But I wonder what it would look like if the church partnered better with mental health professionals, not just necessarily Christian therapists, but like what does it look like for that to be done well, and for us as professional clergy, like for us to like work through our shit and like talk with mental health professionals as well.
Every clergy person should have a therapist and a spiritual director, without exception.
For sure. I was talking to someone the other day about like for disciples, we do search and call, and like, so you know, to find jobs and whatnot. And I was talking to a search committee, not as a person interviewing, but like helping them understand, just for my people out there at the park, but you know, to help them understand like some of the questions that I think would be really helpful for search committees to start asking. And one of them I offered them was like, talk to me about how you take care of your mental health. You know, like you don't need to disclose all of your information, but just like, I see a therapist is a really good place to start with if your pastor is going to take their own trauma out on a congregation or not. Mm-hmm. And so, and, you know, and pastors out there reminding ourselves, you know, you may be trained in counseling, and then you are qualified to do that. But if you are not, to have a list of references that you can always just say, you know what, I'm here to listen at any time, but like, this seems a little bit beyond me. Like those are the best things one of my home pastors ever did for me was like, I love you, I can hear all of this, and also go to therapy. And
my policy is always give them 3 and set them free.
It's so good. But I also really like, as we're talking about Dr. Sharon, because I think that she's a pivotal part of season 2. And I hope actually that she's not only a season 2 character. I hope that they continue that on, even with, I appreciated Ted's hesitancy towards it. And they talked a little bit about that, but the conversation about like pay equity and like, I do this because I'm trained, you know, like I would do this. Would you do it if you didn't get paid? Do you love it? Yes. But like, also we need to be paid well, you know, like to do our work. I thought was a really really good tether to both Ted and Sharon. And also this is, I think, where when Arthur said there's this problematized understanding, is like, she's a doctor, she's fully trained, has all the credentials. Ted's actually not trained in soccer and like still does not understand an offside rule. So it's actually a lot of white male privilege there to equate them. And I think that for me is where I was going back to Arthur's, why I saw, at least in the Sharon Ted dynamic.
I like that. I like that.
That, you know, we want to say they're both at like the top of their game, but they're not, right? Ted does not know soccer. He knows college football. And he's learning. Yeah. And so, but with Sharon on the team, I too was wondering, what does it look like, Werner, as you brought up, like for our pastoral staffs to say, this is a part of our team, and a part of our team is this human over here, whether or not they work for the church or you just send people to them, but it's a trusted advisor to say, like, your mental health matters to us, to God, to your commitment to what it means to be a person of faith in beloved community, and here's someone that can help you with that objectively.
Right. Well, and that's grace too. I mean, like, yes, when talking about like betrayal and being curious about the person who has offended, like part of that is like, I don't know how to, like, a hurt person hurting another person. Sometimes I'm usually gonna side with the victim. And my energy like wants to go towards there, but I also know that I need to care for this other person as well. And sometimes the best way to do that is to refer to counseling. And I would like to say that at my best, I follow up and say like, hey, like, did you go to counseling? Do you want to talk about it? How did that go? But I think there is grace in doing so. Yeah. And going back real quick to like to good communication, mm-hmm. When Ted tells her why he doesn't trust counselors, and like you get paid for this and you don't, and I think Sharon understood where he was coming from. Sure. and was able to listen well, but then also said, hey, I'm offended by what you said. Like yes, I do get paid for this, but that does not mean I do not care. Mm-hmm. And in the way that she said that, she was able to name her why she was offended, but she was also able to let him know that she heard him.
Yeah.
And that was, I don't know. I want Sharon to be my therapist.
I really appreciate their dynamic here.
Can I ask 2 quick questions? Would that be all right? Because we're coming up on nearly. Sure. So the first one is, which one do you love more, Roy or Keeley?
Well, that's too mean. That's a mean thing. I'm a really fan for, I'm nervous, y'all, about the season finale because I really like Roy and Keeley together. And I'm really proud of Keeley. I'm going to lift that up. I think that the AFC Richmond as a whole saw a need and a gift and paired it and said, like, what Keeley has to give as a model, as someone in PR and all of these things, it can transfer really well into this community, and she knows us. And I think the church can learn from that, of saying, like,
hard for the company, not for the position.
Yeah, we've never, you know, we may not have had this position before, but we see this gift and it would be useful for our team. So just lifting that up. But I like them both for different reasons. I love Roy Kent. Love Roy Kent.
That's a really tough question. Almost an unfair question to say, who do you like more?
It's totally unfair. It's a gotcha moment.
But I will say this: I love the relationship between Roy and Phoebe, and the love of a uncle and niece, and just I don't know. I think that relationship's really beautiful. So I think this season, that's one of the parts that I really enjoy.
My favorite throwaway line of this entire season is, "Can we play the Princess and the Dragon? Can I be the dragon just once?" And incidentally,
I mean, I also think that Roy's I don't know. I think Roy's good for, I think Keeley put up with a lot of crap for a really long time with Jamie. And I think that while he's not problematic in certain ways, I think that Roy's better for Keeley, and they're a healthier relationship that was founded a little bit more on equal grounds. I don't know. I'll say the Jamie and Roy hug of episode, that Man City episode, just destroyed me. I mean, like I was like a sobby mess at 1:00 in the morning as I was watching it, and was just like, well, now I can't hate any of them, obviously.
Well,
but like,
that's the other question: is James Tart redeemable?
The father?
The father, yes.
Theologically, yes.
Well, this is a theology podcast, and we're just about out of time, so we're gonna switch over to our final question. No, I'm kidding.
No, I think, hold on, let's finish. Yeah, let's finish that question. Theologically, yes. I mean, I don't know. Werner, you want to say more on that?
I don't know. I think that might be the clearest villain we have seen so far in Ted Lasso in season 1 and 2. And I don't know, it's still TV, so like they might not redeem him, but theologically, yes, he's still redeemable. He is, my opinion, is redeemed.
Sorry, I didn't want to cut you off.
Yeah,
I think I was pointing more towards the narrative, but I appreciate the fact that you're still insisting upon grace, even for.
We got it. But I think, I mean, for me, what he did wrong was, he's kicking someone while he's down, right? I mean, like, there's obviously like years of systemic abuse in that family, but like, I think that, where we had seen this before and weren't as upset. We saw it in season 1, right? But this is like, they just lost, right? There's a big upset, and like, and that to me is where I think people want to say he's irredeemable, and not, we want to make sure that it's not, because I don't know, are we always going to hold people at their worst, right? Like, and I think that that's probably part of it, why we even question, is he redeemable or not as a character, because we want to hold him at his worst, and yet there has to be spaces of where he is at his best too, and we have to hold those in equal measure. In the same way that I think this season, we've talked, this episode of 2, we've talked a lot about kind of the darker side of or the more troublesome side of season 2, because I think season 1 was a little bit more it wasn't as problematic, right? Didn't have the troubles that season 2 had, but there is still joy in season 2. I want to like just name that.
Yes.
There is incredible joy. There's incredible achievement and love and expansive community and relationships that I don't want to forget to name, that like we can, I think as church too, I think this is true, we get stuck in the hard and the things that seem doom like, and oh, I'm mad about this or that, or this hurt me or that, and like we don't lift in equal measure the joy. And so I do think season 2 lifts the joy in equal measure.
And we don't have time to talk about it, but we didn't even talk about how they talked about death for a whole episode. And like that was one of the most theological episodes of the whole season, and we don't have time to talk about it.
What we're gonna say to you, you're gonna have to come back for season 3. Maybe like halfway through season 3, we can cover the finale and death, and then that first. Yeah. Werner, thank you so much for joining us on 2-on-1. I do want to keep us cognizant of the time for the sake of yours and mine and Spiff's and our listeners and everybody else. So as you know, our tradition on 2-on-1 is that we ask a final question.
So Werner, what is the biblical text, narrative, theme, character that you are most reminded of in Ted Lasso season 2?
So right now, I think Nate is not Judas. I think Nate is David. He is like the scrawny guy that nobody wanted, like, and essentially like defeats Goliath, like is like, and is on top of this hill, and like, and his head's getting a little big, and he sees something he wants, okay. and is throwing Ted to the front lines, like David did to Uriah. So I wonder if there's going to be a Nathan that calls. It's so funny because his name's Nate, but I wonder if there's going to be a prophet Nathan that calls out Nate, and if we see a psalm of confession. I'm curious to see what the final episode or next season will have.
Oh, that's such a good answer. And the Keely kisses is Bathsheba. I mean, like, I'm like, oh, I see this line very clearly. Oh, that's good. That's very good. I went with Ted as Elijah because I think that there's something to, even after winning the battles and even after, working with God and doing the right thing and all of that, right? He's still down. Like there's that mental health that Elijah struggles with in wanting to die, and still God saying, no, let's do this work together. You got to move, you got to kind of lean in and commit back to it. And I think that we see Ted struggling with that, right? Like that no matter what win happens, no matter what good is coming out of his life, like his mental health still needs to be attended to, that he still can, that it's not tied to just the joys of life and our ups, that our mental health is something that is with us through all of it. And so for me, I was seeing a little bit of the Elijah Ted. And then I said that Danny Rojas in my head. I was like, he is just like, he's a bunch of Proverbs. Like he's just got he's just, if he were a book, he'd be Proverbs, I think, because he's just spitting out some really great kind of lines, and that you can pull for what they are and let them be, and that you can't necessarily do with other texts. So
football is sometimes just football.
What's the name of the chat app that becomes the sponsor of the
Banter?
Did we notice that Colin, when they brought up Banter, said, "Oh, it's like Grinder, not the straight version, whatever that's called." Like I'm just going to leave that on the ground because I
think we're getting more queer characters. Yes.
Yeah, we need to talk about it in the next time we have you on, Werner. And you're welcome to talk about another show, by the way. I'm going to go with Jamie Tart is Isaac, because Isaac's narrative is more he's acted upon than he's an actor. He repeats a lot of what happens with Abraham, but he breaks that cycle in the worst story in the Hebrew Bible, the damn near sacrifice. And I've always wondered, what do you talk about with your dad on the way back down the mountain when he was going to kill you? Like how weird are family meals from then on out? Like there's just Isaac grows out of the generational trauma, at least there, and I hope Jamie Tart does too, because I think he's dumb. But there you go. Yeah, I guess. Werner, thank you 1,000 times for coming onto the show and talking to us about some of Ted Lasso season 2. The finale of Ted Lasso season 2 is Friday, and I know all three of us and most of our listeners are excited to see it. And if you're not one of our listeners who's excited to see it, drop us a line at 2on1project@gmail.com and we'll tell you why you're wrong. But before you do that, like, subscribe, and share. I won't tell you why you're wrong. I'll tell.
No, you will get invited onto the show to talk about other things, though.
If you are one of the theological types and you would like to talk about a topic of your choosing on 2on1, again, drop us a line at 2on1project@gmail.com.
And we are. Oh, I was going to say, and we are sponsored by Jeff Wenrow Designs, JEFFWUNROW.com. Use the code 2on1, all one word, no letters, for 15% off your entire stole order. And again, Christmas is coming. It's like 80 days away, so order now.
So, unlike Ted Lasso season 2, we will be back next week with another episode. And Werner, thank you again. Deuces. We'll see you later.
Peace.